Good morning, YouTube friends. Thanks so much for coming by. These last few weeks I've been trying really hard to eat healthy, cut down on my oil, get my greens in, and it's been going really well. But today, it's not that day. We are making a really awesome spicy fried jackfruit chicken today with mushroom gravy and smashed garlic potatoes. It's a total cheat meal, comfort food, super delicious. Keep on watching to see how we do it. Okay guys, to get this little comfort meal started, I'm going to add about 10 of these little red potatoes to some salted water and let them boil and get soft while I start our mushroom gravy here. And then to a skillet, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of vegan butter and dump in a medium shallot that I've diced up, as well as 2 medium-sized garlic cloves. I'm just going to let that butter melt and let our shallots and garlic get nice and soft and a little translucent before we add our mushrooms. And then I just added an entire 8-ounce container of baby portobello mushrooms that I've chopped up pretty small. We want to kind of keep them small so they integrate into the gravy a little better. I really like using portobellos because they have a really nice meaty texture. While those are sauteing up and cooking down, I'm going to drain a can of jackfruit here. And then I'm just going to squish them apart, pull out any big seeds that happen to be in there. This one actually doesn't have very many seeds at all. But I'm going to pull it apart like you would with pulled chicken, I guess. It's going to look almost like a tuna fish texture, but then that'll give us the base for our fried chicken. I'm going to add a bit of salt, keep this in the sink in the colander so it can kind of release any extra moisture there. But that's looking perfect. Our mushrooms are looking great. They've reduced in about half in size. And my personal secret to lump-free gravy is this is when I add the thickener. I'm adding 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to stir this in until it coats all the mushrooms really well. And then I'm going to slowly add our liquid, and I never have an issue with lumps this way. So I'm adding 1 cup of soy milk. I'm going to add 2 cups total, but 1 at a time, and stir in between to just make sure that everything is really well incorporated. This is a gravy I use all the time. I have a gluten-free variation that I've made before. I'll link it above so you can see it if you're interested, but it's pretty much the same basic ingredients. Once we've got this mixed together though, I've got this 2nd cup of soy milk going in here. I'm going to add some fresh thyme and a few sage leaves. You can of course use dried herbs as well. Just use a little bit less and do some tasting so you don't overpower everything. It tends to be a little bit stronger when they're dried. Also going to add some black pepper, some garlic salt, and some onion powder. And this thickens up right away. It's only been about 30 seconds and we're already getting some nice gravy texture going on here. And then my new secret ingredient for this gravy, this is a total game changer in my opinion. It adds some lovely depth of flavor and cheesiness. Got a couple heaping tablespoons of nutritional yeast. Now we can just leave this to simmer while we finish everything else up. I've got our potatoes that are nice and tender. I've rinsed them off in cool water so I can actually handle them. And I'm just going to smash them onto this cookie sheet with a little bit of parchment paper. Just going to take a heavy cup or mason jar and just smash it right onto that parchment paper. We're going to kind of twice bake them with some goodies on top. Once we're all smashed, I'm just going to sprinkle them with a little bit of sea salt. And then I'm going to pour a lovely concoction I've made with more vegan butter, some nutritional yeast, some roasted red pepper flakes, and a bit of garlic, and of course some pepper. I'll of course link all the amounts below, but I'm just going to drizzle this over the top, and when we put it into the oven, it's going to bake in and be super crispy and delicious. So I'm just going to distribute all of this butter goodness over everything, and we're going to pop it in the oven at 375. And while those are baking on up, I'm going to start dredging our chicken and getting these ready. So this is definitely a bit of a variation on a fried chicken recipe I've posted before. This one's going to be a little bit more Cajun style. So I've got 1 cup of soy milk here, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and it's going to kind of create a buttermilk for us to coat our chicken tenders in. As you can see, it thickens up right away and gets nice and curdled. I'm also going to add some smoky Tabasco sauce I did about a tablespoon. You could go even heavier than this or go lighter depending on how spicy you want it to be. I think this batch could have used a little bit more, so I'd recommend a heaping tablespoon at least. And then for our flour mixture, we've got a cup of flour, some roasted red pepper flakes, some Old Bay seasoning, some chili powder, some garlic salt, and some freshly ground cracked pepper, also some cornstarch. So we're just going to mix that on up and we will get started with our little fake chicken cutlets. So we're going to wrap our jackfruit in rice paper. So I've got this little dish of water here so we can soften up our rice paper. I feel like rice paper is one of those things that I always have in my pantry and I never have a way to use it all the way up. So this is a good recipe for that. And it makes a really nice chicken skin-like texture. So we got our rice paper here. And then we've got our jackfruit that's drained and kind of let go some of that moisture through the salting of it. So I'm just going to dunk one of these little rice papers in the water and let it soften up a bit, and we're going to wrap our jackfruit. Just going to take a little handful. You can get fancy and try to make different shapes, but I find it's easiest just to make like a little pouch. And the most important thing is just to make sure that your little pouch is totally sealed off so it doesn't break open on you while you're trying to fry them. So I'm just going to make sure I roll it on itself and got ourselves a little fake chicken tender. Jackfruit chicken tender. So now I'm just mixing up our flour mixture here, getting all that spice incorporated. And we're going to bread some jackfruit. So I'm going to start in the dry mixture first, and then I'm going to dunk into the wet mixture, and then I'm going to dunk back into the dry. And please forgive me, you fried chicken connoisseurs that are so good at doing this, because I'm sure this method may look a little messy and ridiculous, but it does the trick, I promise you that. So once we get everything dunked in this way, I'm actually going to let them rest for a minute and then do it again, just back into the wet and into the dry. So we have a double breading going on here. And once we're double breaded and we've kind of shooken off the extra flour, I've got just a half a cup of canola oil here. I'm trying to just pan fry them, not totally deep fry them. I'm just going to settle these right on into our pan that's on medium heat and let them get nice and crispy. While those are frying, I just checked on my potatoes. They're looking good, need a couple more minutes. This has been about 5 minutes. I'm just going to flip them over and get some crispy on the other side. And we are almost there. I'm just going to drain all these little jackfruit rice paper beauties on a bit of paper towel here to get rid of that extra oil. And while they're nice and piping hot, I'm going to sprinkle them with a bit of sea salt. It'll stick really nicely. I had one little guy explode when I tried to pick him up from the pan, so be a little careful, but you can see what the cooked jackfruit looks like there. Super yummy and pulled apart and juicy. Yum. It's gonna be so good. And our potatoes we just got out of the oven, they're nice and crispy and chock full of that cheesy nutritional yeast flavor and garlic. They're gonna be so good. Then I'm just gonna pile on our jackfruit cutlets here and pour some of that herby mushroom creamy gravy right on top. This is gonna be so good. And then of course, because it's mushroom gravy, you need more than just that. I'm gonna serve it with another good side topped with a bit of fresh thyme, and we will be good to go. This is Sunday night comfort food at its finest. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope that you're staying safe and healthy, and I will be back with some much healthier recipes very soon. Cheers.